Welcome back, everyone, to the theory of evolution versus creation. And now that we've gone through some of the missing links that are just that, still missing, and they're not in the fossil record, and how the fossil record in itself is in absolute opposition to Darwinian evolution, because we don't see what he thought we would find with the intermediate links. I want to take another look at the fossil record from a different angle. And in another video, I'm going to go through the age of the Earth and talk about some really interesting things that science has shown gives us another narrative than the one that we've always been told. And keep in mind, guys, that the only reason we approach the age of the Earth from a mindset of thinking it's billions of years old is because that's what we've been told our entire lives. From grade school, we've always heard this narrative of millions of years and billions of years. All these different things took place and happened. And again, the only reason that we have that burned into our brain is because it's what we've heard our entire lives. And so I want to show you a different narrative that, again, I'm going to get into in a lot more detail in another video, but I want to look at the fossil record and the geological column in regards to time and how they come up with the age of the Earth in reference to the geological column. So as I've stated in my previous videos, they use the theory of uniformitarianism. That's the foundation for the geological column, that over millions and millions of years, the Earth became as we see it today. And they, again, do not take into account catastrophic events, which we have scientifically observed absolutely produce these layers very, very quickly. And so in creation, we believe that these layers were formed during Noah's flood incredibly quickly, rapidly. And when you approach it from the evolutionist standpoint, they believe that these layers took millions and millions of years to develop. And so they're approaching it from that mindset. And approaching it from that mindset causes a problem, because they move outside the realm of observational science and they just apply their own belief system to what they're observing and interpret the evidence from that lens. And so I'm just going to read this to you here real quick. The geologists used the geological time scale, also known as the geological column, which is a drawing. Remember the drawings, it's another drawing, consisting of 12 primary layers, each being given a name, an ancient age, and an assigned index fossil. And so published radiometric dates are selected once an age is obtained that matches the geological column. And the rocks are dated over and over again until a date is obtained that matches the column. However, non-matching dates are tossed out. And there are many non-matching dates that come up with it. For example, you will be surprised to find that as far down as we go, down to dinosaur bones, there's carbon-14 within the dinosaur bones. Again, I'm going to elaborate on this later, but there's carbon-14 within the dinosaur bones. That's a big problem because carbon-14 cannot last longer than 50,000 years. It doesn't have that kind of lifespan. It decays until it's completely gone after 50,000 years. So the presence of carbon-14 in these things is a big deal when it comes to getting the actual age of these. But when they find those kinds of things, they throw it out because it doesn't line up with their worldview. And another radiometric dating method is using helium. But helium will more often than not give you thousands of years, not millions of years. So they don't like to use helium dating much anymore because they don't like the age it gives them. And my friends, that is not science. You're throwing away evidence, not because the evidence is bad, but because it doesn't line up with your worldview. And so what's given to us and what's proposed to us is their assumptions and their data that shows millions and millions of years, but it's flawed. And that gets to the bottom one where it says, whenever an index fossil is found, everything in the layer containing the remains is given the age that the inventors of the column assigned to that specific fossil. So the rock layers are dated by the fossils, and the fossils are dated by the rock layers, and this presents a big problem. A university professor from London was a lecturer in economic geology, and he said this. He said, it cannot be denied that from a strictly philosophical standpoint, geologists are here arguing in a circle. The succession of organisms has been determined by a study of the remains embedded in the rocks, and the relative ages of the rocks are determined by the remains of the organism that they contain. This is known as circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is a logical fallacy in which the reasoner begins with what they are trying to end with. This type of dating doesn't work, and yet it's one of the main things evolutionists use to say that the Earth is billions of years old. So again, they get the strata are dated by the fossils that they find in that strata layer, and then the fossils are dated by the strata that they find the fossils in. And so again, it's just a logical fallacy. You can't use this when you're trying to come up with ages. So let's look at what's a little bit lower down on the geological column that they say is as near the bottom of the geological column. In fact, it's at the very bottom, which is a trilobite. And so trilobite fossils in this textbook says trilobite fossils make good index fossils. If a trilobite fossil, such as this one, is found in a rock layer, the rock layer was probably formed 500 to 600 million years ago. And so when they find this fossil, they are assuming that this fossil existed a long time ago. In fact, 500 to 600 million years ago. Therefore, anything within that layer is also 500 to 600 million years old. However, they found a fossil of a trilobite inside of a human footprint. Now, the problem with this is that according to evolution, humans, as we know them, only showed up 200,000 years ago. And so here we have evidence that there's no way a trilobite can be 400 or 500 to 600 million years old because we find them in a fossilized human footprint. Trilobite eyes have the most sophisticated eye lens ever produced by nature. This was said in Science News, February 1974. And then again in 1984, scientists said that the eyes of early trilobites have never been exceeded for complexity or acuity. Here's another problem, because I thought that if everything's evolving and it's constantly getting more and more complex, why is it that one of the supposedly oldest life forms on the planet have the most complex eye lens that's ever been seen? That doesn't make any sense. If evolution is making things better and better and more complex than these very simple organisms that are supposed to be ancient, there's no way that they should have the most complex eye lens ever seen. They should have the simplest, and yet they don't. Why? Because evolution didn't happen. And so I want to move on to graptolites. So graptolites are found in an index fossil that they age to be 410 million years old because of the layer of strata that they tend to find these in. The problem is that scientists were shocked when they found living graptolite in the South Pacific. That was in September of 1993. They found this alive and well today, which means that it's on every layer of the geological column. But when they show you their fancy drawings in the textbook, or when they talk about it in secular science, they should be at the very bottom. And that should have evolved by now, by the way, 410 million years old. It shouldn't be that anymore. It should have evolved. And yet we find it exactly the same today as it was in this so-called layer that's supposed to be 410 million years old. Here's another lie you'll find in your textbook. The coelacanth fish found in the fossil record supposedly evolved 400 million years ago from a fish into a land animal because of its lobe fin, which was believed to be transitioning into legs. It is said by evolutionary scientists to have gone extinct 70 million years ago. And this is another lie in your textbook. So you can see that this coelacanth fish these lobe fins are turning into legs and it's slowly crawling onto land. And so they said this animal went extinct because it evolved into a land animal 70 million years ago. And yet these fish were found alive and well in 1938 off the coast of Madagascar. And they're completely unchanged from the fossils that we have found of them in the geological column. They still have that exact same back lobe fin that never evolved into a foot. They are in our oceans today, completely unchanged from the fossils that we find of them. There's no evolved legs, there's no evolved lungs. They're the exact same fish that we find. And another reason why this is important is that many fossils have been dated to be roughly 70 million years old simply because their remains were found in the same layer or stratum that these coelacanth fish are found in, because they assumed that these must have evolved 70 million years ago, and so they went extinct because they evolved, and so therefore every other animal or fossil that we find in this layer with this coelacanth fish in the geological column is also 70 million years old. And yet again, if they're alive today, then they're on every layer of the geological column. But again, they don't show you that in their textbooks. And so using the coelacanth fossil to date other fossils doesn't work, and yet they've done it all the time. And the other thing I want to point out about the coelacanth fish here and what it says in your textbooks is that our textbooks were written after 1938. This fish was discovered in 1938, putting that whole theory of the evolution of the coelacanth to rest, and yet they're in our textbooks as if they never found those fish. That is, again, not education, and the people who wrote those textbooks didn't do their homework. And that needs to be called out, right? Because it's like, guys, you're responsible for educating our children. What are you doing putting these lies into the textbooks that's just completely false? If you're responsible to be giving a curriculum that's going to be teaching our kids, then you should be doing your job and doing your homework and know that these fish never evolved and they never went extinct. They're alive and well today. And so again, guys, we're moving out of the realm of science and education and getting into religion and indoctrination. And I just think it's important to call that out. Here's another supposedly 450 million year old life form called the horseshoe crab that should have evolved a long time ago. But like the coelacanth fish, they were discovered alive and well. And this reveals two things. They never evolved, and if they're again alive today, then they're on every level of the geological column, yet they show them at the bottom. Guys, these are on every single layer of the column, but in your drawings, they're only at the bottom. Again, guys, this isn't science. We have left the realm of science long ago, and we have now been brought into a realm of religion, where they are asking you to believe something solely based on faith. And in fact, it's going against the evidence. That's why you need more faith to believe in evolution than creation, because it's going against the observable science and the evidence that we see. So let's take a look at what the fossils have taught us. Where's the observable evidence for land animals evolving? Here's an elephant dated 10,000 years old. Where's the evolution? Here's a hippopotamus dated 1.8 million years old. Where is the evolution? They're exactly the same. No changes whatsoever. And guys, you'll notice at the bottom here that it says, where's the evolution? Evolution believers will tell you it didn't evolve because the climate didn't change, yet the mammoth lived through, quote, the ice age. Science refutes the evolutionary theory. You're going to see a few commentary things in the next number of pictures I'm going to show you. I didn't throw them in. They're a little bit more dramatic than I would personally like them to be, but I found these pictures that I wanted to show you, and so we're going to go through them. But I didn't write the captions at the bottom, but I need to share these anyway, because it's very important that we see the actual evidence with our own eyes of what the fossil record reveals. So here's a camel dated 20 million years old. Looks like a camel today. There's a turtle, 120 million years old. Same turtle. There's a mouse, 125 million years old apparently. Looks the same. There's a lizard, 285 million years old. No evolution, exactly the same today. Here's another lizard, 20 million years old, that they found in amber, which is petrified tree sap. Perfectly preserved. And look at that. It's the exact same today. There's another one on the right there where you can see the head. Look how well preserved that is. They look exactly the same today, and yet that one's supposed to be 54 million years old. You're telling me in 54 million years there's not an ounce of evidence for evolution? Yes, that's what I'm telling you, because evolution didn't happen. What about the observable evidence for birds evolving? This one, they'll tell you, the goose sanders have a serrated beak, and they used this fossil that they found, they said it was 100 million years old, as one of the missing links from dinosaur to bird, because it had this serrated beak. But the gooselanders also have this serrated beak. They're the same bird. They didn't evolve. They're exactly the same. There's a hummingbird, supposed to be 47 million years old, that fossil. Looks exactly the same as hummingbirds today. Where's the observable evidence for fish and water life evolving? There's a fish fossil dated 92 million years old, and there's a lady catching a fresh one. Looks exactly the same as the fossil record because it is the same. It didn't evolve. Same with the fish on the right, 125 million years old. Same today as it was apparently 125 million years ago. No evolution. Despite the differences in the allopatric species, they are all the same kind. They reproduced after their own kind, and they will continue to reproduce after their own kind. There's no evolution in these fish. They're just reproducing after their own kind, and they're staying within the same kind. Are there variations? Yes, but they're not turning into any other animal. They are remaining allopatric species. No evolution. Here's an octopus. 165 million year old octopus, 175 million year old starfish, 165 million year old octopus, 175 million year old starfish. They're exactly the same. Zero evolution, zero changes. What about the observable evidence for insects evolving? There's the picture right here that's supposed to be 99 million years old. Exactly the same. There's an ant from 165 million years old. Exactly the same. Here's a spider, 160 million years old. Another one, 44 million years old. They're the exact same kind. They have not changed. Here's a mosquito, 40 million years old. No change. No change whatsoever. And here's the oldest one, 433 million year old scorpion. Guys, 433 million years. That's how old they're saying this fossil is. And it is the exact same scorpion as we have today. Exact same. There's a grasshopper, 140 million years old. No evolution. And I would propose to you that there's no way these things are that old, because I don't believe that the Earth is anywhere near that old. But even if it was, and they were right about these ages, either way, evolution is not happening. It's not taking place everywhere we look. And so the last one is, where's the observable evidence for trees and plants evolving? Here's a palm tree leaf, 50 million year old fossil, exact same as the ones today. There's another leaf, 60 million year old fossil, exact same leaf we have today. And the maple leaf, 100 million year old fossil of an ancient maple leaf. Ancient maple leaf, exact same. There is no evolution taking place anywhere in the fossil record. And so this is what the Bible has to say about it. And I think this is what we should learn from, because this is where the evidence is pointing us. It's pointing us to a common designer, and it's pointing us to intelligent design. But now ask the beasts, and they will teach you, and the birds of the air, and they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, and the fish of the sea will explain to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this, in whose hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind? And it goes on in Romans 1:20 to say, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that we are without excuse. So the next question is, how long does it take to make a fossil? How long does it really take? Secular scientists will tell you that it takes a minimum of 10,000 years for a fossil to be formed, and more likely millions of years. However, over the last number of years, they've made a number of discoveries that actually refute this claim. The Medusa effect, instantaneous fossilization. In 1989, David Martel challenged this belief in his journal article called The Medusa Effect, and he's challenging the belief that it takes a very long time for fossils to form. He found a number of fish fossils in Brazil that had to have fossilized in under 5 hours. He said that for a few fish whose gills were mineralized in apatite, he said lithification was instantaneous and fossilization may have even been the cause of death. The fossilization process can be quick and often must be. He's saying that the fossilization is actually what killed these fish. And you can see that this fish was fossilized so fast that it didn't even have time to finish eating its dinner. You can see its mouth open and it's swallowing another fish. It happened so quickly that it's actually what killed it. The fossilization killed the fish. It was buried so quickly. Now, one of the only explanations for this is a flood. a flood that would bury things rapidly and very quickly. And if you think about it, guys, when an animal dies today, it begins to decay after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Animals eat away at it. Insects come and clean it off. You know, I shot a deer this last year, and I put the carcass out in our backyard. And after a few weeks, there was absolutely nothing left on the skeleton. There's nothing left. Everything was taken. And that's what we see happening in normal life. It's actually very difficult to form a fossil because everything decays when it's exposed to the elements, being the weather and animals. And so fossils are actually a rare thing to have happen because they have to be buried very quickly before the elements can decay them and basically just strip everything away. So fossilization, which is what this guy is showing us, happens very, very fast. And again, we saw another discovery that showed rapid burial and fossilization, which came in this fossil, which is actually a picture of a dinosaur giving birth. The dinosaur was in the middle of giving birth, and it was instantaneously buried and fossilized. Here's another one. This incredible fossil of an Instantaneous, buried and fossilized, again, also while giving birth. This is clear evidence of it having been buried quickly by waterborne sediments. The fossil record is consistent with creatures having been buried suddenly. Otherwise, most creatures would either rot or be devoured by scavengers. Guys, we see this all over the planet. The very fact that we have as many fossils as we do and how rapidly these fossils were created because of the process that is involved in making fossils reveals a worldwide flood. We find it all over the place. And so again, this is evidence that this stuff happens very quickly. But when we've heard from secular scientists, this should take at least 10,000 years, if not millions of years. And when it comes to observable science and studies that have been done on this, it happens incredibly quickly. Here's another example. This is a petrified cowboy leg found in a dry creek bed near the West Texas town of Iran about 1980 by Mr. Jerry Stone, an employee of Corvette Oil Company. So the same time frame is supposed to take millions of years for something to get petrified. However, again, this boot was found with the petrified leg of the cowboy still in the cowboy boot. And so again, this reveals an appearance of age when it's actually not what it seems. It only appears that it's very old when you find something petrified because we've been told it takes so long. And yet here we have a modern discovery of a cowboy boot in a leg where it obviously happened within 100 years because that cowboy boot with the leg in it wouldn't have been there that long ago. A man named Antonin Gregory was an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States from 1986 until his death in 2016. And this is what he had to say. The body of scientific evidence supporting creation science is as strong as that supporting evolution. In fact, it may be stronger. The evidence for evolution is far less compelling than we have been led to believe. Evolution is not a scientific fact, since it cannot actually be observed in a laboratory. Rather, evolution is merely a scientific theory or, quote, guess, and it is a very bad guess at that. The scientific problems with evolution are so serious it could accurately be termed a myth. This is a guy who worked in the Justice Department, so he knows a good court case when he sees one. And he's saying that if evolution is brought to court, it would be thrown out. He goes as far as to say it's a myth, and I completely agree with him. Evolution is a myth. And so we're going to move on and just switch gears here. But honestly, guys, when we look at something even like the human body and see its design, it's incredible. And to look at the complexity of a human would be incredibly ridiculous to say that it didn't have a designer when we would look at something like this cartoon and read it and realize that the snowmen would be ridiculous to say, nobody made us, we evolved by chance from snowflakes. If you guys saw a snowman outside, there's no way you would think it evolved by chance from snowflakes. Intelligent design put it together. Another human being put it together. It's sloppy, it's not complex, it's just 3 piles of snow piled on top of one another. That's all a snowman is. Incredibly simple, and yet you would never look at it and say that happened by chance. How much more when we look at the most advanced machine on Earth Can you tell me that there's no designer? That's the human body, the most advanced machine on earth. It is incredibly complex, infinitely more complex than a snowman. And those snowmen did not evolve by chance from snowflakes, and neither did the human evolve by chance from evolution. It has intelligent design written all over it. The Bible says in Genesis that our bodies are made from the dust of the ground. Fascinating fact is that scientists have discovered that the 59 elements found in the human body are found in the earth's crust. He literally made us out of the dust of the earth, and those elements are still within our human body. In fact, the average person's body weighing 70 kilograms contains 0.2 milligrams of gold. Yes, you have gold inside of you. And I would also go to propose to you that it's because you are so valuable. Your life has meaning. The value of your life was displayed on the cross when Jesus hung on that cross and said, "Your life lived is so worthy of my death. I'm coming to buy you back and to redeem you. I'm going to reveal the value of your life. I'm going to be able to forgive you for all of your sin and remove it as far as the east is from the west. You are so valuable to me that I'm going to come and die in your place and take on your judgment so you can go free." That's the value of your life. And yet evolution teaches that you mean absolutely nothing. You have zero value and your life is completely meaningless. Hope you survive. Completely contrary messages. And I just like this picture, so I threw it in. We breathe in what the trees breathe out, and they breathe in what we breathe out. I'm overwhelmed by God's divine design. Look at that picture of lungs, of a human lung on the left-hand side, and the picture of trees on the right-hand side. Is that a coincidence? Or is that a beautiful creator leaving his fingerprints all over the place for us to see, so that we do realize that since the creation of the world, his eternal attributes are clearly seen by the things that are made, so that we are without excuse. They're everywhere. Switching gears just a little bit again, I want to look at an irreducibly complex system. Now, Darwin is quoted as saying this in 1872. He said, "If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous, successive, slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. But I can find out no such case." And so Darwin's talking about irreducibly complex systems, which means that they have to be all together at once in order to function the way that they do today. And he back in his day, he couldn't find any of those. However, in our day, Darwin didn't have the technology that we have today. And so in our day, we have found many of these irreducibly complex systems, and I'm going to show you one. But guys, this is something I just wanted to throw out there. Like why didn't I hear about this when I was in high school? Why didn't we get a quote like this from Darwin instead of, all the other stuff that we've been fed? Why didn't I know that Darwin made a statement like this where he said, if you could find an irreducibly complex system, my theory would be thrown out the window? And then also knowing that we have found many of those. Like, why didn't we hear about this in school? That's, again, like just something I kind of just want to keep poking at, because it's like, guys, this isn't... It's just not education, and they're teaching you what to think, not how to think, and there's a big difference there. So Darwin got what he was asking for in the flagellum. Now, there's numerous things that we have found that are irreducibly complex systems, but the flagellum is one that's well worth taking a bit of a closer look at. So a flagellum is a whip-like structure that allows a cell to move. It is literally, I kid you not, an electrically powered motor that exists in most living things. The flagellum is an irreducibly complex system, which means every part of it must be present at the exact same time in order for it to function, and it could never have developed piece by piece over time. You might call it the maker's molecular outboard motor. Its most interesting aspect is that it is attached to and rotated by a tiny electrical motor made of different kinds of protein. So just like an electrical motor, the flagellum contains a rod, which is the drive shaft, a hook, which is the universal joint, L and P rings, which are the bushings and bearings, S and M rings, which are the rotor, and a C ring and stud, which are the stator. The flagellar filament, which is the propeller, is attached to the flagellar motor via the hook. To function completely, the flagellum requires over 40 different proteins. The electrical power driving the motor is supplied by the voltage difference developed across the cell membrane. This motor is one of nature's best molecular machines. And some scientists have gone as far as to call bacterial flagella the most efficient machine in the universe. With its self-assembly and repair, water-cooled rotary engine, a proton motive force drive system, forward and reverse gears, operating speeds of 6,000 to 17,000 RPM, direction reversing capability, and hardwired single transduction system with short-term memory. This is inside of us, guys. This is inside of many animals. And more importantly, it's also in algae, fungi, and fungi and bacteria. Bacteria, why is that so important? That's important because in July of 2018, scientists report that they believe the earliest life form on Earth was bacteria, made 3.22 billion years ago. So 3.22 billion years ago, we get this bacteria. And these scientists are saying the bacterial flagella is the most efficient machine in the universe. If in one of our very first life form, why the heck do we have something as complex as an electrically powered motor inside of something that should be the simplest life form that we've ever seen? Things are getting more and more complex as they evolve, as we've gone over. So to have an irreducibly complex system all the way back when bacteria is supposedly showing up 3.22 billion years ago makes evolution absolutely impossible, because the flagella shouldn't be showing up for a very long time given how complex it is. And I would go even further than that and propose to you it should never show up, because it's an irreducibly complex system. You need it all functioning together at the same time. The evolution of such a system would almost be as possible as throwing all these parts into a box and shaking the box for millions of years and have them a perfectly functioning electrically powered motor come out when you are done shaking the box after millions of years. However, that's being unrealistic, because that's also assuming all the parts were there to begin with, and that they had already evolved into these individual parts for absolutely no reason at all. So guys, again, this kind of thinking requires a tremendous amount of faith, more faith than I could ever muster within myself. There is no possible way this can take place. It's absolutely impossible. So here's the challenge of the day. I'll put it another way. Just like the vehicle or the motor or the watch, the flagellum demands a designer. It'd be like taking a watch and doing the same thing. You put it into a box and you take all these individual parts and you just shake that box for a million years and come out with a perfectly functioning watch at the end of those millions of years. That actually is that's more likely to happen because you have all those little individual parts to begin with. Evolution would have no reason to develop all those individualistic parts and then the intelligence to put them all together. It's random and chaotic and has no mind behind it, like a watch has a mind behind it, or a car, or a flagellum. Those have a mind behind it, and it's absolutely undeniable. And so to say it doesn't is not scientific. It's just not. It's religious. So how did the flagellum evolve? This is what evolutionary scientists say. It has been proposed that the flagellum originated from a protein export system. Over time, this system might have been adapted to attach a bacterium to a surface by extruding an adhesive filament. An ion-powered pump, don't know where that came from, for expelling substances from the cell might then have mutated to form the basis of a rotary motor. Here's the evolutionist's answer to how it evolved. Does that sound scientifically intelligent to you? It has been proposed that over time this thing might have mutated to do this and to do that. That's not scientific language. That's faith language. And they're also saying that these different pieces came together, but they're not telling you how those original pieces came together. Why did something evolve into an ion-powered pump? I'm just calling it out for what it is, friends. It's absolutely ridiculous to say it doesn't have a designer. It's just crazy to me. And so anyway, this has been a video where I just wanted to break down the fossil record to you, and I wanted to look at just I didn't even go into the human body. I mean, but like you guys know, like the complexity of the human body is staggering. Just look at a human eye. A human eye alone. There is no possible way that could evolve by chance randomly from a lesser life form. It's impossible. Just the eye. Just the eye. Pick a part on your body. The evolution of it is impossible. It demands a designer. Science points to intelligent design again and again and again. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you don't mind me getting excited about some of these things. I do find them exciting just because it's just so blatantly obvious to me that it is amazing. Evolution is still on the table with the amount of discoveries we have made. It just blows my mind that it's even a theory being taught, let alone a theory that's being taught as the only fact on our origins in textbooks across the world. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. In the next one, I'm going to get into some pretty interesting things. I think we're going to go over the age of the Earth, and it's going to be really challenging to some of your preconceived ideas on the age of the Earth. And so I look forward to getting into that with you. We'll see you in the next video.